Sal, your financial pal here. Hoping you're having a great time for this holiday season. Just want to let you know, don't forget about your loved ones. Enjoy the time with your families and just have a good old time and be thankful for our opportunities we have. And again, if you have any issues with your current plans or you want a second opinion, I'd love to be connecting with you. Give me a call. My number is 336-748-1271. Again, it's Sal with Edward Jones, and just want to wish you all a very happy holiday season.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Well. Woohoo! I'm feeling energized. Are you?
You got some good energy today?
I don't know about that, but I've got some energy going on.
All right.
We're getting ready to talk about a book called Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. And it's a 2024 hot off the press.
This is a hot,
yes, it's a hot book. And it's published by Penguin. Avery, I believe, is the imprint on this one. Mm-hmm. And it's written by Casey Means, who is an MD, and with her brother, Callie Means. And we know a lot about Penguin and Avery already because we've read some books by them, so I'm not going to spend more time on that. It's a peer-reviewed publishing house. It's a good one. Hey, if you're as interested in prevention as I am, contact me, Eleanor Russell, at 360health, number 4, letter U.com. Whether you're interested in financial wellness or physical health products, 360 Health invites you to become part of our community. Kristen, tell us a little bit about our author, Casey Means.
Yes, I'm going to read her description in the back.
Okay.
So she's the co-founder of Levels, a health technology company with the mission of reversing the world's metabolic health crisis. She's served on the faculty at Stanford University, lecturing on metabolic health and health technology. She received her undergraduate degree with honors from Stanford, where she was president of her class. She then graduated from Stanford Medical School and trained in head and neck surgery at Oregon Health and Science University before leaving traditional medicine to devote her life to tackling the root cause of why Americans are sick.
Yeah. We've read some other books on this same topic. We had Peter Attia, who also has rebelled against his medical training and is venturing into a new area. And there's a few others that we've read as well.
And then Callie Means is the co-founder of TrueMed and an advocate for policy to change health incentives. He is a graduate of Stanford University and Harvard Business School. So those are our authors.
So they've got some education there that's not easy to attain. So this book, I think, I got a couple of general things I'd like to throw out there. One is it's a personal story. Her mother's health experience influenced her, and so she uses that story to kind of bring us into what she wants to focus on. And she has the ability to use other patient cases, which we've seen other authors do. There's Sophia, who has sinusitis, and there's Sarah that has migraines, and there's Lucy that has adult acne. And it kind of helps bring it down into, okay, I kind of see where you're going. And it's a readable book. It's not so difficult, I don't think, like maybe the quantum.
Not too technical.
Quantum body was a little expected a level of understanding. I think the general public could read this. And it's broken out into parts. So it's organized nicely. She's got her introduction, and then she's got 4 different parts. There's the truth about energy, creating good energy, the good energy plan, and then her recipes. So that's it. And I think I'll just stop there for a minute because I think you have some things you might want to say in a general perspective.
Yeah, so I was really excited when just looking over this book before we picked it up to start reading it. And I say that I actually listened to it. I don't have the physical book.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell where each author was
Oh, it was her.
It sounded like it was all her.
Oh, it pretty much was.
Okay. I don't know
I think
where
he
he
just
is.
kind of helped her with it.
Okay.
I didn't have a sense that he was writing sections.
Okay. And they're siblings. I don't know if we
No, we
made
didn't
that
say,
known.
yeah.
Okay. So from, just first glance, I was excited. Good nutrition, good sleep, good stress management, good exercise, and talking about how all of these things affect our health. Seems like a very holistic approach that I think we all need. But as I got into it, I found lots of things that I didn't necessarily agree with. So that's kind of my overview of how I feel right now.
So we've got a controversial book, and we're going to have fun digging down in there and to see where we have agreements and disagreements, if that's okay with you, Kristen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I had a problem with the title. I don't like good and bad. Energy is energy. And there is, particularly when you talk about, and she says it's the surprising connection between metabolism and limitless health. And I'm not surprised by that, because if you've been reading along with our podcast,
Right.
we have read a lot of books since we started this.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them have talked about metabolism and health. So it's not like a surprise to me that there's a connection. So I was like, okay.
Right, yeah.
And while I'm on that topic, Tim, would you tell our listeners about our bookstore? Because we would love for you all to see what books we have read if you're just now getting into our audience. But also, we've put the books out that we're going to be reading. And if you want to read along with us, we would love for you to shop at our Amazon bookstore. So you can tell the folks about that.
Yeah, so healthgeeksbookclub.com is the website. And on the website, I'm waiting on it to come up so I can tell you exactly where it is. On the website, there's the About Us, the Contact, Podcatcher, Platform Hub, and then there is the Health Geeks bookstore. If you click on that, it takes you to every book that we have talked about and the ones that we have scheduled to talk about.
Good.
And you can get ahead of the game. You can purchase ahead of time, or you can purchase after, either one. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get ahead and read along with us after we put it out, then you can have the book ahead of time.
And we would love to have you put some comments in there about what you think about the book, and if you agree with us or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we like conversation.
And so when you go and shop at our bookstore, it supports our podcast.
That's right. So they are affiliate links, so we have to give that disclaimer. Mm-hmm. Any purchase from these links will benefit this podcast.
Absolutely.
So it will be minimal. You're not making us rich, but every little bit helps. Every little bit goes towards the cause to bring you more listening goodness.
Okay, now, Kristen, I had another little comment about the book that I failed to mention. There's no bibliography in this book, and I am a kind of stickler for bibliographies. I kind of want to know, could you footnote this and tell me where that idea came to you? But there is an online bibliography for each chapter, and I don't know if you took the time to explore any of those or not.
I pulled it up with intentions to, but I haven't explored. I
did once or twice, and I said, okay, she's got some significant stuff in here, so it's not just website stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess they save paper by doing that. The publishing houses may be moving to that format that is accessible. But again, I think some footnoting in here would be nice.
Right.
You can say there was a paper in 2019 that said so and so, but I'd kind of like to say, okay, what was it?
Right.
I'd like to footnote down there to say, oh, there it is. Okay, good. And I can go look it up if I want to. All right. Well, so that's the organizational stuff about that. And the other thing about good energy title, I would just say, why didn't you call it metabolic health? That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So,
because that's not flashy enough.
No. And, that as a biologist, that takes us right into ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And that energy molecule, they call it the energy currency of cellular activity. That this idea that the sun makes energy and then the plants capture it and then we eat it and it get that energy at each transition stage, you lose some of the energy, but you maintain some of these things called chemical bonds. And so this particular molecule is holding some of that energy that's been passed through the ecosystem to us. And she gives a nice little story about that. But the reason you are consuming the ATP is because you're making proteins, you're repairing and replicating the DNA in the cell. There's cell signaling molecules that are going on. You're transporting things across membranes. You're cleaning up your cell waste. And we read a book about autophagy, the mTOR. And then just the basic metabolism, which has two parts. There's the anabolic and catabolic parts of metabolism. Anabolic, you're building things, and catabolic, you're breaking them up. So it's all good. There's no bad in there at all. That's all good stuff. So I don't know.
She ties just about everything to inflammation, which she then ties to energy. And she goes through like all of these things. For example, okay. Let's talk about her for a second.
Yeah, okay, go back to her.
In her book bio, it really doesn't say that she was a resident and then a fellow specializing in ear and neck surgery.
Nose, and throat, yeah.
Ear, nose, and throat surgery, thank you. So she dropped out to start a functional medicine practice right before getting to the end of this long journey. And she was saying that they're treating all of these things that are tied to inflammation, and they all tie back to bad energy. And one of the things was the pain in her neck was because of bad energy, not from looking down at surgeries, but because of bad energy. And so that's just one of the first places that kind of rolled my eyes.
Well, yeah, and I think when you're writing for the lay press, that if we don't like it when they get into too much detail, but when you go into, muscle injury from stasis and, that kind of thing, you do get down to because muscle has a lot of mitochondria in it. And her focus in her conversation has to do with mitochondria. And we read a book about how important mitochondria function is to our well-being, and any dysbiosis that's affecting that is in there. But on that topic about her professional life, I think she was saying she had zero sunlight. She was getting up before dawn. She was working till after dark, so she wasn't getting any of that circadian rhythm benefit. She was drinking coffee in excess. She was under fluorescent light. She was eating processed food. She had beeper interruptions all the time. She was not exercising. She had chronic fatigue. And so she was saying that was cellular misery. And that her sore neck is just, I think, the tip of the iceberg of that.
Sure, yeah.
So
yeah, sounds like she got pretty burnt out.
Yeah, and I know from having, and you probably have watched this too, people who take that training, it's brutal. And I was on the education side of it saying, we're training these people to be healthcare providers, and we're putting them in the most unhealthy situation possible.
Absolutely.
And so how is this going to work when they get out and advise patients? Because that's not their experience.
No.
Yeah, so I think there's a good conversation in this book.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is a disruptor. I would call this book a disruptor against the status quo.
Yeah. I think that's what she's trying to do. So on one hand, I do very much agree that inflammation is a root cause, but she ties it to all chronic conditions. And she doesn't talk about...
Didn't she say 80% of them?
Okay. Does she? All right, thank you.
She left a little window there for some things that don't fall into that.
Okay. Well, she doesn't mention social determinants of health. And that's huge. And I think that's a very important missing piece when you're going to talk about
Good point.
Getting to the root cause of chronic conditions.
Good point. Yeah. And I think her argument about medicine, because she's saying we need to revolutionize it, as Peter Attia was saying, medicine 3.0. It needs to be focused on prevention.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm excited about that idea, but that doesn't mean we have to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Which she does.
In a way, yeah. And I think where she draws the line is acute disorders. Our medical system is phenomenally equipped to take care of us. It's these chronic conditions that they've dropped the ball on, and the way that they're managing them. She's implying that Big Pharma has influenced the business of medicine to the point that the practitioners are kind of hamstrung. And that and one of the things that she said that I thought was just difficult to read about was how they were programmed to write prescriptions, see the patient in 15 minutes and it end up then the billing code and then this and that. And it was not focused on the patient. And that was what she was seeing over and over with her colleagues.
And the rebuttal I think I hear is, A, there's not enough time. B, when we try to address non-medicine answers, the patient's not ready. But I have a personal story. When I go to my physical exam, I'm very much in this health and wellness sphere, and I do a lot to take care of myself. And I kind of want my doctor to ask me about these things, even if it's just to pat me on the back, like, good job.
Yeah.
And here's an interest. So we recently switched to a more high deductible plan. So not everything is covered like it was before. So I have to be really careful when I go into the doctor because I'm generally healthy. But if I talk about any kind of ailment, they might put it as a problem and then I'm charged more.
I got stuck in that and got a huge bill.
That's an issue.
Yeah, it was a wellness visit that I didn't even want.
And you're just going to be proactive?
Yeah, because I'm on Medicare and you're supposed to go do these. And I thought Medicare paid for it, which it says it does. But the billing system and the big hoo-hoo here, there were 2 appointments at the same time. How does that happen? I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah. So it became a coding issue and it took months and it took a nasty letter. And then it was, oh, yeah, you're right. We made a mistake. But if I hadn't advocated for myself, I just said, take my money. It's like, I give up. You're big. I'm little. You win. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that puts a bad taste in your mouth for wanting to access the system.
It does.
And the hesitancy, like you said, the social, what was your, you
social
said
determinants of health. And one of the main ones is lack of transportation to care. But then even if you can get to it, do you want to? If you're just going to be fearful of the expense that you might. But my doctor for the physical, it felt like asked me 100 questions, like trying to get down to a problem. Mm-hmm. And at the end, he was like, well, wow, I guess you're okay.
Like, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I am.
Good.
I guess I don't have to pay you then.
Well, I had an annual physical too, and I don't want to say too much about it other than I was I don't even think I'd go there. But yeah, there's a story that was not as satisfying.
Okay.
And had to do with an hour and a half wait.
Oh.
With no explanation. Just it's your time, too bad.
Wow.
And I'm like, I think I will bill you for my hour and a half. Because my time's valuable.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And somebody could have put their head in here and said, hey, there's an emergency. Just the kindness, human thing was kind of missing. But I will say at the end of all of it, and this is something that we're going to get into, and I'll save it for that part of it, but you were talking about expense. One of the things that she's in business. Her brother is in business, right? TrueMed and Levels.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the other overarching things that I have about this is I don't like obsessiveness, and I think there's a drive to compulsion and obsessiveness with all this bio-tracking.
Yes.
And the detail that a common person would, and they have to have a medical degree to understand how to do it. And also that, there would be support. It's just, to me, I don't think this is where we're going to get the benefits that we think we're going to get. We're going to create a worse dynamic from compulsion and obsessiveness and total confusion on how do I be healthy and can I be perfect because my numbers aren't right, or I'm putting the wrong thing in my mouth, or and I thought I don't.
Yes. So you jumped ahead a little bit. Let me.
Well, that was overarching, so we can dig.
But that's perfect. But okay, so bridging the gap. I think we all have not great experiences at the doctor, and Casey means that thinks that incentives are in the wrong place. Pharmaceuticals are always the number one. And yeah, I think we can all get on board with there's an issue and things need to change a bit there. I think she goes a little bit too far when she's encouraging you to not trust your doctor anymore.
Oh, yeah. She made a huge statement about don't trust yourself.
Yeah.
Don't trust your doctor. And I think, oh, no.
Right. Now,
yeah, I agree with you.
Now, there's nuance.
Yes, there is.
Because you go to the doctor and they spend 15 minutes with you, and you spend every waking minute with yourself. So you do know yourself more than that doctor. But to tell someone to not trust doctors who follow the science and I believe genuinely want to take care of people.
Yeah, but I would rather her have said, be an advocate for yourself and start a conversation.
There you go.
Because if you don't agree with the doctor, talk with them about it.
Yes.
Because maybe you have a good point. Maybe they would see your side. You don't know until you have that conversation, but just to cut off the conversation.
It's very divisive.
I think so too, and I think it's not as beneficial as it might be.
Yeah.
But I do think we should have some caution because I know that when I was overworked, because I was a perfection seeker and thought I could do everything, and I was wearing myself out, and when I went in to the medical system, the first thing was, here's a prescription for an antidepressant or whatever it is. They say, no, you need to tell me to quit my job. That's the advice you should give me. Because that's the lifestyle change that I needed, not a prescription for something that was then going to create another problem that's then going to create biologically, because that's what I think we get into is with polypharmacy, is you get into all this mix of chemicals that probably aren't the best solution. The lifestyle adjustment is what we need, and we need people who are willing to counsel us on that. And if it's not the medical professional, then team up with the nutritionist that's out there. Team up with the counselor, the addiction counselor. Build that practice team that we know can work, and don't make it so financially exorbitant that nobody can use it.
Exactly my thoughts.
Oh,
yes.
we're on track.
We are on the
We've been
same
reading
page.
these books, haven't we?
Yes. Tired of feeling stuck in your health journey? At Well Balanced Nutrition, we understand that achieving your health goals isn't just about what you eat. It's about overcoming the mental roadblocks holding you back. Our team of expert nutrition coaches is here to guide you every step of the way, helping you break through mindset barriers and reach your full potential. Don't let mindset barriers stand in the way of your health and happiness. Call Well Balanced Nutrition today and start your journey to a better you. But then back to your point.
I have lots of points.
I know, me too. But they both are in business, you said, and they prescribe a lot in this book. So on one hand, they are saying, don't listen to this, don't listen to the doctor, don't trust the doctor, whatever they might say. But we want you to track all of your numbers.
Yeah. You can't do it.
So Levels is a continuous glucose monitoring program that kind of ties, it's like that plus a form of Fitbit, right? Like you can track your sleep and your exercise, and tracking all these numbers is what they encourage. And yet she doesn't necessarily disclose that she's going to make a lot of money when you do.
Yeah. Although she does say that that's my company, but if you didn't read that fine print on the jacket cover, you wouldn't pick that up.
Yeah, you might not. And it's not cheap. It's $400 for your first month to get started with that. Yeah. And then it could cost you anywhere between $1,000 to $2,400 to continue to do that for the whole year.
Well, here's the other thing. True Med is they get your blood work done for a fee. A private pay lab work is what I understand it to be. And so part of this book, it would be the middle of the book where they're talking about, because in the first part they talk about your mitochondrial function and how so many of the things we've talked about in our books, because I think this is a rehash of all the reading we've done. I mean, I went through and I've said, that's blue zones, that's, blah, blah, blah. So chronic overnutrition, we've talked about food swamps. Remember in one of our books, instead of food deserts, there are these food swamps, and we're overfed and undernourished.
I think they're essentially the same thing. When you look at food deserts, they're talking about lack of healthy grocery store kind of food. And instead, there's tons of fast foods.
Yeah, yeah. But we know that in our country, and I think there's a lot of agreement. Americans are not healthy. We're moving not towards good health.
Yeah.
With rising body weights and all that stuff. But anyway, the nutrient deficiencies and the microbiome is getting messed up, our microbiota, if we're not careful with that. Sedentary lifestyle, the chronic stress we're living under, the medication and drugs, the sleep deprivation, environmental toxins, all these PCBs and forever chemicals, artificial light, thermoneutrality, where we're not experiencing hot or colds. All these things are causing mitochondrial dysfunction, which causes the energy flow that drives metabolism. Whether you're building or breaking something down, it requires energy. So she's on track there. I don't argue with that. She's saying that insulin resistance, which we're seeing a lot of increases, even our children, pre-diabetic children, at higher numbers than ever before, are also adding to this problem. And so you've got the dysfunction, the inflammation, and the oxidative stress is what she says is the trifecta that's killing our mitochondria. And then we move into this metabolic syndrome, and she starts giving you blood levels. Here's your fasting glucose. Here's your waistline. Here's your HDL, triglycerides, blood pressure. If you don't have a way to understand what those numbers mean, I don't know how you follow her guidance without professional counsel.
Without a doctor.
Exactly.
Well, she doesn't want you to trust them anyway.
Well, I think she's saying find a functional doctor maybe. But she didn't really say that clearly. She's saying here's all the rules and regulations you got to follow. So go follow them and go buy your blood work from my brother and see if you can interpret it. Which, I kind of like the idea that it's out there and available. I might spend $500 because when I went into my wellness thing, they didn't check my vitamin D. I wanted that, but there's no reason to check that. So we can't write a billing code for that. And I might like some of the other things that she suggested because I know a little bit about it. I am kind of interested. But yeah, we're in a reformation, I think, of the professional care that's available to our citizens.
Now, I like the biometrics that she asked you to ask your doctor. I think those are great. I think we should all pay attention to those things. Those things, when my patients bring them in, it helps me help them. And maybe it's nice to know what the numbers are. And she gives you the standard numbers. And I do think that we should pay attention to the more functional way of looking at it. It's not abnormal, but it's not ideal, right? She gives you those different ranges. So,
yeah, but her numbers are not necessarily in line with the professional organization's numbers.
That's what I mean. She gives you those, and then she gives you the more functional medicine range.
Yeah, and I don't know. That needs some discussion for me.
Yeah, so I think the medical profession would argue, or at least the one that lives in my house, that we have to be careful with these labs because if we don't have the right evidence, it's just kind of a waste of money. And especially if insurance is covering it, we got to be wise about where we put our money.
Yeah, and there's also, in the lab results, there is a variation of accuracy.
True. Mm-hmm.
And depending on when the samples were taken, can influence them as well, and what the person was doing before they had so there's all sorts of confounders as how good is the data, which makes it interesting too. So maybe repeat samples would be good.
Yeah,
but that's expensive.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she, I thought it was Function Health that does the blood work. I might be wrong, and that's Mark Hyman's company that she has invested in.
Well, I thought we need to clarify that because I was it could be, but I thought that's what TrueMed was about, was a service to provide that to the customer direct lab testing.
Okay.
Anyway, whichever company. What about the history of medical education and the Flexner report? Did you remember reading about that? That was a report that came out in 1910. And it stigmatized nutritional tradition and holistic remedies in favor of pharmaceuticals. So you as a professional are kind of the recipient of that bias in funding, because funding for nutritional research dropped off, and that's still an issue, I think.
I think so too.
And who's funding the research always gets to be the introduction of bias into the recommendations we're getting. So the informed consumer has got a lot of work to do.
And doctors don't get intensive training in nutrition. And I think they should get some, but I feel like, and this is my bias because I'm a dietitian and it's my career, but do I think that doctors need to play the role of a dietitian, or like you said, we just need to team up a little better
I would say
and all
that.
work together?
I like that. I mean, it's the amount of education one has to get. You pretty much max out somebody's ability to have all that information.
Right. Yeah.
At the state-of-the-art level, and stay current with it as it's developing, because everything changes. And then, there's so much panning about science right now of you can't trust it because it changes. That's the nature of science.
Exactly.
It's not a static. It's as we learn more, and we can revise our understanding.
We learn more.
Yeah.
We challenge it. We learn more. We challenge it. Yeah.
Well, since you are a nutritionist,
Yes.
this,
What do I think about her whole?
well, I was going to say right here, this new term for me, she says your body has the answers. And so you need to do oral glucose tolerance testing and continuous glucose monitoring. And we read The Glucose Revolution, where the glucose goddess was also suggesting we need to wear these monitors and see what goes on. But she has a new word that I kind of like, bioobservability. And that's this new trend of being able to observe your biology with these monitors, which I was saying I'm cautious of because of the push towards being obsessive about it.
Right. Well, the question is who needs to do that, or who would benefit from doing that? From this book, it kind of seems like she wants everybody to do it. And I think there needs to be some nuance there, especially since it's costly. I don't think everybody needs to be prescribed this.
No, but we all have smartphones now, don't we?
We do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we could all have bioobservability instruments too.
And
It's a good Christmas gift, Tim. Get yourself some.
I cannot lie. I'm curious, and it would be really fascinating to see my numbers and how sleep and stress would affect those. Would it change much for me?
She seems to think it might.
She does. Yeah.
And I kind of think it might too, because I think when you do know, you say, oh, that's how I'm responding to that. I probably should pay attention. But who knows if everybody's the same. Well, so her principles of good eating, she says food determines the structure and function of your cells and your microbiome. That eating is the process of matching cellular needs with oral inputs. I love that. And I've said my story about when I was in my chaos life, I would leave my office, drive up to Checkers, get the hamburger, fries, Coke, swallow it in 5 minutes, and still be hungry after it was at 2,000 calories or more, probably, and still be hungry. So, and I used to say, my cells are still wanting something, and they're screaming, so that's why I'm still hungry, because I didn't get what they wanted. I didn't give it to them. So I like that idea that matching your cellular needs with your oral inputs, and we can do that by eating.
I agree and I disagree.
Okay, I thought you might. So come on, give it to me.
So I, of course, think nutritional value that we get from our food is super important, and we need to think about it. I'm cautious because I don't think that's the only thing we need to think about in terms of what we put in our mouth. We cannot ignore the value of the social, emotional, and traditional connection of food. And we've read books about that.
And like we were talking about the holidays that are coming and the emotion around that.
Yeah. And so I agree. And I think she is more on the obsessive side about it. And I don't think we need to obsess over that. However, along those lines, she went on to say, sorry, my notes are all scrambled. You can choose what serves you and think about what messages do I want to give my body. And that's one way to think about the food that you choose. I liked that takeaway.
Sal, your financial pal here. Hoping you're having a great time for this holiday season. Just want to let you know, don't forget about your loved ones. Enjoy the time with your families and just have a good old time and be thankful for our opportunities we have. And again, if you have any issues with your current plans or you want a second opinion, I'd love to be connecting with you. Give me a call. My number is 336-748-1271. Again, it's Sal with Edward Jones, and just want to wish you all a very happy holiday season.
Well, I want your professional opinion about this. She said about grains, I don't see any benefit of grains.
Well,
they lead to a leaky gut.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here
and
we're
then she says 2 tablespoons of basil seeds will give you blah, 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 which, I'm thinking, who's going to eat 2 tablespoons of basil seeds?
She's bringing basil seeds back. She's like,
where do you
seeds
put,
are gone. Do
you get a spoonful and chew them, or do you put them in a seed oil dressing, which she says you can't do?
They're evil.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to eat 2 tablespoons of basil seeds each day. How am I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to put it in a tablet and swallow them? I don't know. What?
I don't know. I'm curious. I'm like, okay, what do basil seeds taste like? Are they exactly like
I think it would be
seeds?
horrible. That'd be such a strong basil taste, don't you think?
Do you think?
I
don't
do.
know.
Let's get some.
Let's get some.
Okay.
Well,
Do you like basil?
Yes, I love basil.
Do you think that the seed has the same flavor as the leaf?
I don't think that coriander seeds taste like cilantro.
Okay.
But they have a distinct flavor.
Right.
The coriander seeds.
Right, but it doesn't taste like cilantro,
Okay.
which is what coriander seeds are.
Well, okay, there's something to learn about there. Okay, well, so she wants us not to eat grains. I thought grains had some benefit for roughage and fiber and B vitamins.
And we have a lot of evidence and research to show that whole grains are very beneficial
But she
to our
said,
health.
I see no benefit. I thought that's a strong statement.
Yeah.
And she said to avoid carbohydrate predominant foods. That's what she's saying is a low carb vegetable is better than a high carb.
So she wants you to eat a lot of volume because at the same time she recommends 50 grams of fiber a day. And where does fiber come from?
Basil seeds.
For her.
Yeah. True. Maybe that's her secret. But fruits and vegetables, but it also comes from the whole grains that she doesn't want you to eat and carbohydrates. It comes from carbohydrates. Anyway.
Well, she in this chapter on good eating, good energy eating, I thought Food Fix, ultra processed people, and what your food ate were the foundation for this chapter. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't again, from. It was that surprising to me because we've done our reading.
Right.
If you haven't read those books, read those books. They're really good. And she did give a list of foods and brands to avoid. So she was I think she's trying to give specific help to people from her opinion.
That's a nice way to put it.
So I think you need to keep that opinion thing.
I think it's too prescriptive.
Okay, good.
So here's where I drop the... I, as a registered dietitian, do not recommend this book. And it's mostly because of this chapter on nutrition.
Okay.
I see it as a recipe for an eating disorder.
Oh.
Absolutely. So here's the red flags. And then there's also the statements that I don't think are evidence-based. But the red flags are things like this, and I quote, she says, avoid conventional foods at all costs. Mm-hmm. Avoid them as if they were illicit drugs. Mm-hmm. Never do this. Very strong ultimatum kind of words. And so, unrealistic. And so I'm thinking, at all costs. So a Consumer Report study found that making every item in your shopping cart organic can increase your food budget by 50%. Uh-huh. So there's that. There's also your mental health that could be at cost if you're avoiding conventional foods at all cost, and your social health, because she recommends cooking all your food and traveling with it. And if you're doing something social that you need to offer to be the one to cook, occasionally that is fine. I think that great. Let's cook for our friends. But this is not you should try this out. You need to do this every time you have a gathering, every time you travel, just travel with your own food. I'm sorry, that's disordered.
I know people that are gluten, not sensitive, but allergic. And they have to do that.
They need to do that.
And that's great.
Absolutely.
And I understand that. But
Yes.
this other stuff, I don't.
And food allergies would be the same, right?
Yeah,
Like people with food allergies need
Sure.
to be super careful.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, so we tore that chapter apart.
Wait.
Oh, there's more
in that
Oh,
chapter.
you
You mentioned seed oils.
Yes, let's talk about seed oils.
She says they're evil, they're inflammatory. Why I looked at the references, because I wanted to see what she was referencing there. But there is lots of evidence that says the opposite about seed oils.
Well, how about sesame oil? Is it as bad as all the other ones?
Apparently, according to her.
Okay.
But so it goes back to this theory that we have
Good food and bad food.
good food and bad food, and omega-6s from our seed oils, and not enough omega-3s, and that this imbalance can cause inflammation. And
So
then
eat
there's
some more omega-3s, folks.
Eat some more omega-3s. And so people kind of ran with that, but there's really good articles out there that show the evidence of these oils. And yes, we can limit our processed foods because they're often in the processed foods, but please, Casey Means, stop demonizing seed oils when there's not enough evidence to back that up.
She also said you could eat black olives, but they had to have the seeds in them. So if you pit the olive, what have you lost? I mean, I don't eat the seed.
Who does?
So I didn't get that either. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Now, there's no footnote on that either.
No,
So, yeah.
interesting.
All right. Well, then, what about?
I don't know anything about anything you guys are talking about, but I am not happy with her.
Okay. Well, she's got some.
I've got two more things on nutrition I really want to talk about.
Okay, we'll
then
put 'em
we
in
can
there.
move on. Okay. So she calls out the USDA guidelines, and she says, how dare they recommend that 10% of your daily intake come from added sugars? Well, they don't recommend that. If you look at the wording, it says we all should limit added sugars to less than 10%. I mean,
They didn't approve it. Yeah, right.
forgive them for giving us a little bit of fun in our diet and saying, yeah, have that one little coffee, but try to keep it to 10% or less of added sugar.
Yeah,
And
a
she's
tablespoon
like,
of sugar is like 16 calories or something, and it's a tablespoon.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't. It's added sugar though, so I shouldn't do that.
According to Casey Means,
Yeah.
it's at 0%.
Yeah, right. No added sugar.
Absolutely none.
No one lump or two in your tea, Tim.
She also calls out
I don't listen to her already, so
there's this food ranking project where it went pretty viral. It was an experiment just to see if we could find this algorithm to rate our food and give it a grade. And cereal got a better grade than meat. And this is an experiment. This was not put out for the public. But some people in this wellness field ran with that and said, oh my gosh, how dare they put cereal above
Like manufactured
whole
cereals.
food. Yeah.
Like Kellogg's Sugar Crisp.
And they have gone on to refine that. And they in the report said that this is an area we need to tweak because obviously that's not necessarily a good ranking. But then Casey in her book is saying, oh my gosh, they're promoting cereal over beef, and that's not the case. So that really made me angry.
Oh, what's the other one?
Those were the two.
Those are the two. Okay. Whew.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for letting me get that in
Well,
there. Okay.
since we're on that, I'm going to jump to the end of the book and then come back to the middle. But we could talk for probably 3 hours on
We
this,
could.
it looks like. Okay, so I had some colleagues, and I'm Eleanor Russell at 360 Health.
well, hi.
Yes, and I have a website, 360health4u.com, and you can come find out about some of the products that I recommend to incorporate in a healthy lifestyle. However, in this group of business professionals that I associate with, this gal said, let's have a book club and let's read Good Energy. And I went, oh, we're doing that on our podcast. So I got started on this thing and I started reading, and it was on a Facebook group, Well, she leaves her book at home and goes to London. It's like, well, how can we have a book club if you're
not going to read
in
it.
London and you're and Stu, you know who you are. I love you, and we will talk about this book. So anyway, I kept reading it. Well, one of the rules that she had in her book club was that you had to try a recipe or two each week. So I did it. So I'm out there cooking these recipes at the back of the book, and I will have to give you my report, may I?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so proud of you for doing that.
I
had the audiobook, so I didn't really get the recipes
Oh
from
my
the
gosh.
internet.
These are the weirdest recipes you have ever run across. And so I will tell you that she had one called, let's see if I've written this down. Oh, yes. Sardine scallion fritters with tzatziki. How's that sound to you?
One more time.
Sardine scallion fritters with tzatziki. That's not something I would have thought of.
No, the sardines I'm not a fan of usually.
Well, let me tell you.
I've never eaten a sardine that I know of.
Oh my gosh, these things are out of sight, killer good. They were I made it thinking, oh, this can't be good. And it was so good. I would repeat it anytime and I would serve it.
Wow.
It was so
Can
cool.
you make it for us?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yes, I could. All right. And then the next recipe that I tried was mushroom and creamy cauliflower bake.
That sounds good.
Oh, doesn't it?
What's
and
the
it's like
creamy?
a fake shepherd pie. So right away, I'm going, why does it have to be shepherd pie? I mean, why do we have to even compare it to another recipe? I don't like the raw food people did that and turned me off big time. It's like, just say it's raw food and it's good.
Yeah, fake food. Just, I mean,
Imitation food.
Imitation.
Yeah, imitation food.
Yeah, you can't imitate. Well, anyway, I made it. There's no way I would ever make that again. I've used every bowl and dish and thing in my house, the blender. You had because you didn't just have to do that. You had to make the creamy cauliflower celery root puree, which is fake mashed potatoes, to go on top of the shepherd pie. And I would just as soon eat the steamed vegetables. They were beautiful, and then I mushed them up, and they were destroyed, and I couldn't find them anymore. And the celery root thing, I couldn't find a celeriac. If you go to the grocery store and ask for it, it's not there. So I just used celery. And it would have been a beautiful side dish to a bowl of lentils, which is the base of the mushroom creamy thing. And by the time you got done with all the stuff, it was like, this doesn't even taste good. I would not serve it. I would not make it again. I do not recommend that one. But then I tried her spiced turkey and mushroom lettuce wraps. Excellent. I've made it twice. It's so good. And it's got cinnamon, and I can't remember all the spices in there. Stuff I would never put into a meat dish, but I think other cuisine does.
Is it kind of Moroccan style?
It may be, but
Okay.
boy, is it good. And then that butter lettuce that you get to wrap it in. Ooh, tasty, tasty.
Oh,
So even though she has some crazy ideas about nutrition in the book, a couple of her recipes are good. And there are more in here that I may try a few more of it. So I had a bad experience, but I had two good experiences. And so I'm assuming that some of these others may be good as well. And it's always fun for me to try new, recipes, particularly if they're coming from #1 New York bestseller. Well, what did you think about her?
So you were about half and half on the
recipes?
On the recipes?
No, 2/3.
2/3.
Probably
One
half and half
was
though,
that.
because
Okay.
there were a lot of them in there that I thought, ooh, I want to try that. They were not that kind of list. It's like, and then that sardine thing was just so scary. I said, I got to try that.
Of course.
You were brave.
Yeah. She talks about regulating post-meal sugar levels. She talks about respect for a biological clock and replenishing what modern time has taken away, which that was a Blue Zone story for me. And I thought a good one. And that idea that comes in there is about the temperature that I think I've mentioned in one of our things, I'm challenging myself with some cold water therapy to see if I can get a contrast going on, to see if that does anything for my perkiness and longevity and healthy lifestyle. So she advocates for that. And then non-toxic living, that's big on my list. Chemicals in the products that we're using, the BPA, the phthalates, the parabens, the generally recognized as safe story, the GRAS is how FDA approves products for market. And it's like they come out generally recognized as safe until they hurt somebody. Then we pull them off the market. And so there's an interesting story there too, is how much regulation do we need? But I think if we're informed consumers, we can maybe do our part on that as well. And then she talks about lifestyle adjustments. And, again, that's some of the stuff that we've been reading about. I didn't find anything contrary in there, did you?
No. She talks about sleep. I was reading a review. I don't remember that. Maybe you remember this, but the review was like, she said that if you have a pet that keeps you up, maybe you should get rid of your pet. And so I was just, I'm
okay with that. I like my sleep.
I like my sleep too.
Yeah.
I don't think she's had kids yet, so she might have to if she has kids, she might have to deal with a phase of not sleeping very well. And I don't think you can get rid of your kids.
Yeah.
Like you can maybe
or your fur kids. Yeah. And when your animals age and die, that's something they do. They disrupt your sleep, and you're not going to put them down immediately. I mean, that's you want to care for them as they decline. So it's, I would agree with you.
But sleep is super important, and I agreed with most of the things in there. Stress management, and she recommends going to a counselor. I loved that part. I think we need to normalize talking to a therapist. So thank you for doing that.
So, she talks about living in fear. And I thought that was a good section of her book. And she's talking about the societal pressures that we have, and so much is coming to us. And she said the traumas and fears of 8 billion others have become ours to process. And so if you're on media sources with people at remote distances, all of a sudden you're getting news of the minute right now. And there's nothing you can do about it because it's like across the world.
Right.
But then you take that in, and I thought that was a pretty interesting statement, that all of a sudden we're traumatized by things that if we didn't know about, we wouldn't be dealing with. But we're overcharged with fear, and it's deadly. She says 70 to 90% of human diseases are related to activation of stress-related biology, and we've discussed that before. And that your cells listen to all of your thoughts through biochemical signaling. So when you start that chemical process, your cellular function is going to respond to that.
Mm-hmm. I think she makes a good point that, you turn on the news and it's traumatizing. I will put another plug in for social determinants of health, because we know that if you're struggling financially, that's a major stressor, and that could be another thing that's causing illness.
Oh, absolutely. So, our takeaway: you say don't read the book. I say if you read it with some caution and look stuff up.
Because she says fear, and I thought that was ironic because a lot of her approaches are fear mongering of these things. Just her kind of obsessive all or nothing approach to it. But she does list, you kind of skipped over it, but it's worth mentioning, like the environmental cleaners, like environmental friendly cleaners. And she lists things to maybe consider.
Oh, yeah. Filter your air and water. She says go buy a Berkey filter, a charcoal reverse osmosis. Those things are expensive too. And if you put a whole house system in, you're into some money as well.
Yeah.
But Berkey, I think, is under some sort of a lawsuit right now because of their silver. And it's a funny lawsuit. It's like it shouldn't be happening. It's like they are not doing any, as far as I can read, it looks like, because silver is an antimicrobial. But because it's a metal, FDA is upset about it. And it's like, no, it's doing its job.
Gotcha.
It's not putting silver in the water. It's an antimicrobial. Anyway, so that story's still out there, and you have to buy your filters from somebody else now. So that's not an easy fix either.
No. But we both agree non-toxic cleaners are important.
Oh, absolutely. Because that daily... The aerosols, and even for fire retardants, I mean, it gets into the walls. Your plaster boards are absorbing some of these aerosol or volatile chemicals that are not good for us. And so you're continually exposed to off-gassing from materials unless you're careful. And you can't avoid it all. But the idea is in my opinion, is to minimize as much as you can control. And buying your products is one thing you can control. You mentioned she said form a relationship with a mental health professional if you're needing to heal from trauma, because all of us experience trauma at some point. Her second thing there, though, is track your heart rate variability and work to improve it.
Another number to obsess over.
And I think if I went out on the street right now and said, could you explain to me your heart rate variability? That someone would go, huh? Like, I don't think that's common knowledge.
Would you call me?
Yeah. That's not something that you were schooled on through public education. And if you didn't take a specific course of study, you wouldn't understand what that means or how to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You need a professional on your team.
Yeah. But do doctors even discuss heart rate variability? You'd have to have a functional medicine practitioner.
Well, I mean, it's something that we can look at. I'm sure they would. I mean, they can explain it to you.
They could explain it.
Oh, yeah, they can tell you what it is and how it works. But what are you going to do about it? It's another question. Anyway, spend time in nature. That's all for me. I'm outside. It's about time for us to wrap this up, don't you think?
It
Got
is.
your final thoughts for us, friend and reader?
No, just that I don't recommend it. We've read other books on these topics that I would recommend, though.
Yeah, I felt like it was a rehash of a lot of the ones we've done, and she did pull them all together. And she is getting a lot of attention in the media now. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about that. So her voice is being listened to, and it's interesting.
Yeah, so she participated in a roundtable discussion in Washington, D.C., called the American Health and Nutrition, A Second Opinion. So kind of gained some popularity from that. And then she's been on several podcasts that propelled her popularity as well. Tucker Carlson Show, The Joe Rogan Experience, The Doctor's Pharmacy with Mark Hyman. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if you haven't heard her name because she's in...
Yeah, she's making the rounds. And again, like I say, I don't like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think some of the stuff that she's recommending is really good, and I think some of it, you want to explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
Her recipe was really good for that sardine thing.
I think that it's good to have the conversation, but we got to be careful with our solutions that we propose.
And as we do in all this exploration of what does it mean to be healthy and well, we've talked about what's the definition of wellness, and there's a lot of variability in that. So I think, like I said, we're in a reformation of how we're taking care of ourselves, and nobody's perfect and nobody's got the one answer. So I think to read and talk and explore is the way that we're going to find our way through this. So please join our podcast community. We love having you out there.
Absolutely, and love hearing from you. Well, I'm Kristen Norton, one of the registered dietitians of Well Balanced Nutrition, where we offer nutrition and wellness coaching. If you'd like to check us out or connect with one of our dietitians for a free clarity call, visit us at wellbalancednutrition.com.
And I'm Eleanor at 360health, number 4, letter U.com, and I like to help people find their way with a prevention strategy that helps reduce risk of bad health and poor wellness. Have a great day, everybody.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.